Good evening. It's almost tomorrow, so I'll almost be saying good morning soon. Welcome to the Watery Theatre and to the 41st edition of New Directors, New Films. My name is Gavin Smith. I'm the editor of Film Comment magazine and one of the 5 or is it 6 people on the selection committee this year. And I'm very, very proud that we managed to include this extraordinary movie in our selection this year. It was a film that I saw at a midnight screening in Toronto. I've never seen the audience go so wild, so you've got something to live up to, you guys. And ever since that screening, I've been determined that that movie would show in this theater on this screen. And my good friends on the selection committee, enough of them agreed with me. And so, fresh from MoMA, we're now going to screen it at Lincoln Center, and you're going to now meet a new director who's going, I think, to go very, very far. And you're going to see many more terrific movies from this guy. Please welcome Gareth Hugh Evans.
Hello. Yeah, thank you very much for coming out tonight. It's a huge, huge honor to be able to show this film to you guys. I hope that you're all game for a little bit of blood and violence and broken bones and sort of snapped spines and things. That's a good reaction from someone there then. Yeah, this is not the kind of film that's gonna make you feel like you've been touched deep inside. You're not gonna take away any kind of political subtext from this film. Just enjoy the ride, and I'll be back out and do a Q&A with you afterwards. So hope you enjoy. Bye.
Please give a big hand to the most important Welsh filmmaker in Indonesia, Gareth Hugh Evans. I gotta say, I've had some wonderful experiences in this movie theater over the years. Films by Jean-Luc Godard, Ho Xiaoshen, and Bellatar.
Same thing, right?
Hearing you guys go this nuts tonight is one of the most satisfying things that's ever happened to me in this theater. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So how many people got injured making this film?
A few. Yeah, sometimes when it comes to injuries, it's like the thing you expect it to be. Like the guy when he breaks his back on the wall, or the guys falling in tandem. You expect little injuries from stuff like that. You think like, you try to plan ahead, but you know something's gonna go wrong. But sometimes it can be like the smallest thing as well, which ends up going wrong. And that reminds you how dangerous everything is when you're shooting then. Like one of the small ones, cause I've said the big one so many times. I've said all the big stunt injuries so many times in Q&A, so I'll tell you a small one. There was a guy who gets stabbed in the throat when Iko's got the stick and the knife, and he pulls him in and stabs him in the throat. The way we did the shot was to be safe, was we had the camera from the side, it was a profile. So that gives us space and block in so that Iko can bring the knife over the shoulder. And because of the camera position, it sells it, it's fine. So all the guy had to do is just get pulled down, and then the knife comes up here, and then he just reacts. The problem was that when he got pulled, his head came down and to the right. And so he went right in the path of the knife. Now the knife was made out of soft wood, but it still cut through his cheekbone. And Iko was saying that when he stabbed, he said he could feel the bone. It went through the knife into the handle. And he freaked out, and he just grabbed the guy and just pulled him in. And so we're all watching it on the monitor, and all we're thinking is, holy fuck, is his eyeball. So we thought his eye had come out. So I'm rushing out, and Iko's still holding on to this guy, you know, and separating them, trying to see what's wrong, and then there's this cut on his cheek. And so, yeah, we gave him a cup of tea, put a plaster on it, put makeup over the plaster, and then we shot again.
That's what you call a trooper, right?
Yeah, cup of tea. 2 sugars, important, remember that, yeah?
So, how did you come to make this film? I mean, did you start out with the basic idea, or was it that you wanted to work with these particular actors, these particular performers, I should say, really, since they're professional fighters, some of them?
Yeah, I've always wanted to do a romance comedy, and It just
How you've
went
managed it.
exactly. Yeah, the first minute. Yeah. We wanted to do something else that could kind of cement. We did a film before this called Marantau, and that was to kind of introduce eco ice. Thank you. It's cool. And that was the first film to kind of put his name on the map. And we needed a second film to kind of cement his reputation. And we'd spent a year and a half trying to get the budget up and running for a different film, a bigger film, which was called Brandal. And after we found out that we couldn't get the money in place, we decided this became like a Plan B project. So it was like, okay, we can't afford in Indonesia now to have like a big budget, but we can do something for maybe like 1 million. And so that kind of informed, all right, it has to be in one location, it has to be inside a building. Something I could control much easier in terms of the shooting days and, not having to deal with various elements. Like it rains a hell of a lot in Indonesia, so, to not be put off by the weather was a big factor. So that was like, okay, we'll shoot indoors. And so, the raid came about through a lot of different sort of, budgetary constraints, and that's how it informed it.
Were a certain amount of the scenes actually filmed on a soundstage? Or was everything in that
building?
building?
About 85% of the things that we see is in the soundstage. We only use the real building for the exterior, but even then, the outside of the building is CG. So we had like a real building which only about 4 floors. So then my CG guy kind of just shot it up 15 and made it look filthy. It was actually an office block. And then we shot then on the 5th floor of that building was where we shot the drugs lab, the meth lab thing. And that was a horrible place to shoot. Yeah, it was horrid.
I'm curious as to how you actually stage a big fight scene, like particularly the one in the meth lab was when I started to think about it. I mean, is it really worked out like down to the to the last detail, or or are you sort of making it up as you go along, like in terms of the camera work, in terms of how the camera captures the action?
We pre-design everything. For the first 3 months, it's just me, Iko, and Yayan. Yayan plays Mad Dog. And the 3 of us will kind of workshop together in one room. It's just us in an office space with a bunch of crash mats and then a handy cam. And so we'll design every single detail of the fights from beginning to end. And we map it out. So we map out the shots, the editing. We figured it all out right there and then before we even start rehearsing with the rest of the cast. And we do this because like this is only our second action film and we're still sort of in our infancy learning how to do this. And so that kind of works as a safety net for us. So then when we're on production, we've got those edits and those rough cuts that we can kind of use as like a template, as a guide. So everyone on every department can just watch that and know what's required shot for shot. And so when we're in production, as we're shooting the real version, we just drop that in on the timeline. And then if anything goes wrong and one of the edits doesn't flow right, then we're already still on location. So we don't have to spend any money on an extra day. We could just go back in and get another shot to fix the edit. And so that's kind of born out of that. But for the drugs lab, the only thing that we did kind of improvise was what people were doing in the background of the shot. Because it was 3 different fights going on in 3 different areas of the drugs lab. And trying to figure out what people would do in the background was probably the most time-consuming thing we did.
Were you using some of the same like guys again and again in different fights, the stunt fighters?
For the stunt guys, we'd actually did a huge casting session. We saw about 400 people and reduced it down to like 80.
Are there actually 400 stunt people in Indonesia?
No, there are 80 very, very good people, and there are about 320 people that don't really know what they're doing and just came in anyway. It was like the
you used the 320 because it would be more fun.
It was like the American Idol of stunt guys. We had these people coming in, and then like one guy would take his top off and just start waving his arms around, and we were like, "What the fuck is this guy doing?" And then the 80 that were really good, then we kept them, and they ended up all of them got a credit. You might have noticed, Drugs Lab attacker number 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. But I was kind of, when we were doing the credits, I was like, okay, I don't want them to all just be lumped in as stunts. And then just a list of names that people don't really pay attention to. I want them to each be able to say, oh, hey, I was the 15th guy in the Carrie and Bobo fight. I wanted them to each have their own credit.
And there are no small roles in a movie, They all thought they were the main character in the movie, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Have we got any questions out there for Gareth? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love Hard Boiled. For me, that's the best action film ever made. and will always be the best action film ever made. And so Mad Dog was like an homage to that.
Yeah. Whose idea was it to get who to do the score?
Mike Shinoda.
Ah.
Basically what happened was Sony picked up the film about 2 months into the shoot, because we were editing on location, so we had fight scenes that we could send off to our sales agent, and they took those clips, those offline cuts of the fights, to the Cannes film market, and we did it just to kind of raise awareness of the project. We didn't think we were going to sell anything. And Scott Schumann, who was at Sony at the time, he took a liking to what he saw and then picked it up and got on the phone to me while I was filming Tama shooting the 5 guys in the back of the head, which was nice. And comfortable, nice, happy day on set. And I got this phone call, and it was Scott, and he was saying how, we're interested in this film, but we want to know if you're open to the idea of, us getting doing a new score on the film, something that we can kind of tie in with our label or an artist in the US. And we were like, yeah, okay, yeah, sounds good. Got us released through Sony, and so they showed the footage to Mike, and they hadn't seen the original yet, so we hadn't even started on the original music either, and they showed the footage to Mike, and he responded to it. And then after I was done with my version in Indonesia, I got on the phone with Mike then, and he was talking to me about like his approach. And I was very sort of adamant. I didn't want to give him any notes at that point, because if I gave him notes straight after doing my one, they'd all be the same notes I give my guys, and I just get the same score. So I asked him what his approach was, and when he talked to me about, he didn't want it to be like, a bunch of Linkin Park songs on top of a film. He didn't want it to be like that. He wanted it to be a proper score, like referenced like John Carpenter films and stuff like that. And then when he talked about bringing Joe Japanese on board to do work on it, and I was a huge fan of his work on the Tron soundtracks. He worked with Daft Punk on that. So I just felt like I was in really safe hands. So I was like, okay, you guys go ahead and create. And then after a month or two, then they came back and previewed the score for me. And then it was just a case of having like a few notes, but not many, and it was just really good work.
Yeah. Well, I was pointing at him really, but go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
How many cameras did you use to cover some of these scenes, and what camera?
We used the Panasonic AF100, which is the step up from the DSLR, but we put like a PL mount on the front so we could use Zeiss Cine lenses, the 35 lenses, and then we recorded into, this is going to get really technical, sorry, we recorded into a nano flash using the HDSDI out so that we could have 4:2:2 color, so we could mess around with the color a lot. For the gunplay stuff, and sometimes the martial arts, whenever we could, we'd use 2-cam. But more often than not, it was single cam. Because we move our camera at 180 a lot, so then when we do that, it rules out the option to have a second camera running then. But mostly single cam.
Yeah, I mean, the camera moves so wildly that I kind of was afraid for the cameraman. Like, did he get injured?
Yeah, once actually he did, yeah. A machete flung out of someone's hand, and it managed to go in between the fig rig and the camera and almost hit him in the face.
Nice one.
Yeah. It was a fake machete. Don't feel sorry for him. He's okay.
In the back.
Yeah, wow, terrific film. How did you become interested in doing just action films? It sort of reminded me of like Assault on Precinct 13 set Inside Out.
Sweet.
How did you get into doing this?
I've always, it's such a weird thing because I grew up watching like martial arts films and watching John Woo and watching Peckinpah and watching all these different sort of action films all throughout my childhood. I never thought I'd be making martial arts films. Like I back in UK, I always thought I'd do like social dramas, thrillers, that kind of thing.
Maybe you can work your way back to that.
Yeah.
And later in your career.
So what happened was that I got hired to do this documentary out in Indonesia, and it was about Silat. And so I was a big fan of martial arts films up until like 94, 95. Like, I mean, Fist of Legend was like the last really good one I'd seen at that point. And then it started becoming like pop star pretty boys on wires and shit, and it got rubbish for a while. And then On Back came out, and then everyone was like excited about martial arts films again. He put it back on the map. And then, so, yeah, I ended up in Indonesia doing this documentary. and it was about Silat. And I'd known all about Kung Fu and Muay Thai and, you know, karate, judo, aikido, everything else, but I'd never seen Silat before. And I just became obsessed with it. And the process of doing that documentary was, it was like 6 months. And I got to learn about the traditions, the culture, the philosophy behind Silat. But I also got to meet Iko, who's the lead actor in this film, and our first film, Merantau. And so one of the storylines we filmed in the documentary was actually about a young kid doing Merantau, which is an Indonesian tradition. And so I came away from that documentary with my martial arts discipline, you know, the lead actor, choreography team, tradition, and the storyline. And so it was one of those things where everything kind of came to me in a way that I'd be an idiot not to try it at least. And so through the process of making that first film, I just became completely obsessed and just wanted to find new ways that we could explore Silat on the screen then.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, Merantau and The Raid are two separate films. But we have a film. So The Raid is the first part. Brandel will be part 2, and then we're thinking about a third part at the moment. I have an idea of where it goes, but I don't have the storyline for it yet. Brandel, I have the story entirely. I'm about, I keep saying 5% away from finishing filming, writing the script, but I've been saying that for months now. So I should say, let's say 2.5% away from finishing the script.
And will it feature the two brothers?
Yes. So what we do is in the sequel, like in this one, everything's so contained within like a small period of time. It's only like 10 hours, 11 hours worth of the day. So it felt like if we put too much like plot developments and character development in there, that it would just overwhelm the action. It would overwhelm the storyline. So we kept it very streamlined in this one. But in the sequel, we do something a little bit different. So we're not going to be inside a building anymore. We're going to take it out into the streets now. And we get to meet the gang bosses that let that guy have that building. So these are the higher-ups now. And we expand the story a lot more. It's set over the period of about a year or two. And so it's a much bigger story. And the action's going to be a bit crazier this time as well.
How could it be any crazier? What are you talking about?
We have a sequence that we're designing. We've already done the choreography for it, where Iko is going to fight against 4 people, but inside a moving car. And he's kicking people out through windows, and they're getting hit by other cars and stuff. And once we figure out how to do it without killing anyone, we're good to go. So.
Okay, time for a last couple of questions. Yeah, you in the white shirt.
How did you decide like some of these like finishing blows to a lot of these things? Did you just come up with like a giant list and see what you could make work?
I'm a psychopath, I think. I need therapy. No, it's usually. No, I think I am a psychopath. No, it comes from how can I say, different influences along the way. Like the guy who gets smashed against the light and then hits every tile on the way down to the floor. Thank you.
That's in the top 10.
For him, like the guys will come up, but the guys, Iko and Yayan especially may not look it in this film, but he is such a nice person. They're so friendly guys. And they'll come up with the choreography, and they'll do like the thing of, oh, okay, I can catch his head, and then smash him against the light. And I'll be like, okay, that's good. But let's just keep doing it until he hits the ground. So then it'll be like an extension of it. We bounce off each other. And then like the guy with the neck on the door, some other fans now. So what happened with that was just that we were kind of aware of the fact that we had a fight before this already inside the corridor space, and we wanted to change the location. We wanted to mess around a little bit and go somewhere else. So we wanted to go inside one of the rooms. So then we decided, okay, we'll go kick somebody through the doorway into the room. And we're like, okay, the door's broken. And then I was thinking, oh, there'd be splinters there. And then I'm a huge fan of Peter Jackson's film Brain Dead. I think it's called Dead Alive over here. And there's a scene in that where the motorcycle zombie guy has his rib cage like pushed down onto this splintered door frame, and then it gets split in half. His body crawls in half. So I thought, well, we're not going to go that far, but we'll do something like that. So then it was like, okay, you can jump backwards and slam his neck down onto the splinters, and I'll kill him. And otherwise, it's just like, you know, observations, just walking around the house looking for things that would hurt. So, like gas cylinders. Oh, that would hurt if it exploded and ricocheted across my body. So yeah, observations.
Anyone else? Oh, there's two. All right, you, then you. Your favorite? What was his favorite? What?
Scene.
Scene.
I really enjoyed doing the gunplay stuff when they go through the hole in the floor, because the shot was really hard to get that shot going in through the hole, and I was really happy that we got it. We did it in a very sort of cheap, low-budget way. So the camera was on a fig rig, the steering wheel mount, and I knew I wanted that camera. I wanted it to feel like we were always going in every room with the guys. So it didn't matter if they were, you know, just going in through a doorway normally or dropping through a hole. The camera had to follow. And so we had one camera operator up on the top, and then he would hold the camera, and he was on a wire. And then as Eco drops through the hole, he would fall onto his front and push the camera through the hole, and then twist. And then as he twisted it, down below, we have a second camera operator stood on a table, and he's just looking up, waiting. So when the camera comes through, he grabs it and then continues the operating of it. So that was like a cheap way to do it then. So that was that. So I was really... Thank you.
See, these people don't just like fight scenes, they like great camera work.
Exactly. And then, but my favorite scene is probably the final fight, because it was a bitch to shoot, and the guys only had like 8 days to get 6 minutes worth of fight in. Usually we'd want about 14 to 15 for that, and they had to beat the crap out of each other, and like every hit to the body or the legs or the arms is full contact. And poor Yayan, we gave him the worst fucking wardrobe ever, because he had such a thin t-shirt that we couldn't get away with padding for him. So he was like, can you take it? And then you inspire that macho side of the guy, and he'd be like, yeah, I can take it, no fucking problem. Right. All right, cool, next shot. And and so, yeah, that final fight was like, it was such a long time. We spent about 2.5 to 3 weeks choreographing it, and then about 8 days shooting. And I was really happy with it, because it was kind of like a mix of stuff which was more complex choreography, but at the same time, these really rough, aggressive throws, and sometimes, you know, clumsy movement, which made it feel a little bit more real then. So yeah, that was a fun shoot.
You had a question. Yeah, the question was about when, at the writing stage, do you come up with the fight and action sequences first and then kind of build the story around it, or what?
Usually the story first, because I don't want it to be one of these things whereby it's like, oh, we're on page 7, let's put a fight in there. So I always kind of write it in a way of like wherever flows, wherever feels natural. So this one's really fast paced, this one's much more streamlined, but the first film didn't have a fight for 45 minutes. And a lot of people didn't like that. I don't know why. But yeah, I just do whatever feels like natural in the process of writing it. When it comes to writing action scenes, I tend to not go too detailed. Like you can't write down like, oh, punch with the right hand, block with the left hand. You can't do all of that, because you're the only one that's going to understand what that is. Nobody else is going to be able to read it and visualize it the same. So what I do is for the guys, I'll come up with like a brief sort of, it's like I treat it more like prose. So we write down the basic bullet points of how the fight scene is going to play out. So like Iko's got a stick and a knife and a cop on his shoulder. The cop's injured and he needs Iko in order to keep him on his feet. He gets attacked from the front, from the side, from behind. Every time the attackers come in, he shifts a body out of the way. But every time he shifts a body, the guy needs to be kept up. So Iko has to adjust in order to keep the guy up and then attack. And so that like informs the first part of that scene. And then you have the next bullet point, which will be like, okay, he puts the body down, now he's free to fight cleanly. Then he loses his stick, he loses the knife, and you know, all these little details along the way, so that the guys, when they design in the fight scene, they know that there's these little steps along the way that they have to reach. And so you kind of give them that setup, and you say, okay, that's the setup, now find a way to kill 18 people like that. And then they'll present stuff, and we kind of workshop the sort of the structure of it then.
All right, maybe one last question if there is one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something from even in the original. I mean, the guys who did the music, sorry, for the original version, they also did the sound design as well and the sound mixing. They were the guys who did the music on Marantau, the first movie, and I had such a good experience working with them that I wanted to trust them with the sound mix and the sound design as well. So once we'd finished the script, we started to kind of make little notes for little things that we could do, because sometimes like the designing the sound that early on can help me decide how I'm going to shoot something as well. So like when to kind of when to use slow-mo for the dramatic purposes and stuff like that. And it was something that we were conscious of, that this film being all in one location, in one building, it needed to feel like the sound was very immersive. We wanted to feel like you were always being surrounded by someone or something. And so we went in a lot of detail with the sound. The silenced, the suppressed gunfire from the SWAT team. Like for that, we looked into the library and it was all really like cheap, shitty, like pew pew sounds. And so we didn't want to use that, so we decided to make our own. So we made our own and using the subwoofer channel and we used the mechanics of the gun. So we just fired the gun a bunch of times, recorded the mechanics. You'd hear the movement of the interior of the gun, and then this deep thud then to go with it. So there are lots of things like that. And then the guy, when he goes deaf from the gunshot, there were little moments like that because we knew we had so much gunfire before this that we needed to have a moment where there was a bit of respite for the audience. So you're not being bombarded all the time then. Weirdly, like when people comment about the film and like a link to like a video game, I never really see it as an insult at all. You know, I actually I know, because I really I love video games for a start, and I think that some video games are way better than a lot of films that come out as well. And I think for me, it was never really like a conscious decision in the design of the film, but there are just certain traits and certain things that happen in this movie which are sort of they have that link to a video game that's inevitable. So, like, I really hate action films where the first scene is killer and then it gets progressively worse as it goes along and then ends on a whimper because they spent all the money on the first scene. Like, I want the action to get bigger and bigger and better and better and better. And in order for that to happen, the bad guys have to be stronger and stronger and stronger. So then they become like those, this is the next end of level boss, this is the next end of level boss, and this is the real bad guy. And so like in that respect, then it ended up taking on that life of being similar to like a video game. And then obviously setting in a tower block where they have to go up floors, that doesn't help hide the fact that it's like a video game too much. But further onto that, two guys from Indonesia yesterday released a video game of one of the scenes online, and it's really cool actually, but it's fucking hard. I'm not good at games, but yeah.
All right, well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for, but thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.